According to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, construction has the highest suicide rates of all occupations. But there's a company here in Denver that's become a national model for mental health wellness on the job.
All right, guys, today's toolbox talk is mental health and workplace safety.
Every morning, the workers at RK, a construction manufacturing and service business, circle up for their toolbox talk.
For many years, it's considered taboo to talk about mental health at a work or other public places. Luckily, the stigma surrounding mental health is changing, and people are talking about it.
They stretch.
5, 6, 7, 8.
And they speak freely about mental health and safety issues.
So the big thing here that you guys need to look at is to listen.
The practice started in 2014 after an incident that shook everyone at the company.
We had one of our employees that worked in our shops, and at the end of his shift, he walked around and handed out all of his tools. By the time he figured it out that he was contemplating suicide potentially, I think we went to his house and he had already taken his life or asked for a wellness check.
Alongside industry leaders and suicide experts, John helped develop the blueprint for mental health wellness and suicide prevention within the construction industry.
If our people are struggling, they shouldn't suffer in silence. I mean, there's something that we can do.
6, 7.
They developed the daily toolbox talk and they expanded their employee assistance program, making it easier for people to get help from counselors.
What's that? Change in habits. What else?
Most importantly,
ask for help.
They transformed the construction workplace culture by having open conversations about mental health and creating a compassionate environment in an industry that historically has been built on toughness.
I think we've averted over 15 suicides where people have come up to us during the crisis and said, hey, I need help.
We can go over to that one that's on the table right over there on the corner.
One person who was brave enough to ask for help, Project Superintendent Dean Italiano.
I have PTSD, depression, I have really bad anxiety, and I have ADHD.
Dean says he struggles with his mental health every day, and there are times where he feels like he's in a bottomless pit.
There's some days you just feel like you just can't go on. I mean, it's just, the pain is so great, and it's so hard to explain to people. You just feel like you'd rather just not deal with it anymore.
He says thankfully he's found tremendous support at RK. In fact, John was the person he called when he was in crisis. Dean says he knows the company culture is rare. What do you think about RK having such a strong focus on mental health wellness?
Oh, it's awesome. It makes me just so proud of this company, and it makes me want to stay here. You're doing the centers right now?
Dean is proof that the mental health blueprint is working, and John says he's not afraid to share it with competitors because he knows it's for the greater good.
If we're bold enough to bring an uncomfortable topic, maybe that emboldens other business leaders around this region or around the country to do the same thing. Like, this just makes sense. Like, why should there be a stigma around this?
He hopes more people will be like Dean, feeling encouraged to speak up and ask for help.
Don't give up, fight. Just fight every day. Just fight on. It's worth it.
If you or someone you know is struggling, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting. The Natchez Trace Parkway Bridge in Williamson County, Tennessee is a beautiful architectural site for many.
This is an iconic bridge. It's won something like 16 design awards.
But for some, it's become a place of pain and grief.
I lost my sister, who was 25, to suicide at the bridge. I lost my 17-year-old son.
Sarah Elmer and Trish Morello have come together over a mutual understanding of how it feels to lose somebody who has died by suicide.
Seeing what a young suicide does to a school and to a community and to a neighborhood and to a family, it's unimaginable grief.
Trish's son John was a senior in high school. He was academically gifted and in marching band. His mom describes him as somebody whose heart would make a difference in this world. Sarah's sister Danielle was a mother of 2, smart, caring, and a big mental health advocate.
Now that she's gone, I just don't have my other half.
Both John and Danielle will forever be missed. And now, Sarah and Trish are doing everything they can to prevent other families from feeling the same sorrow. Together, they've formed the Natchez Trace Bridge Barrier Coalition.
Ultimately, what stops bridge suicides is a physical structure.
Their goal is to create an 8-foot barrier on the bridge so it's not easy for someone to jump. But until then, they're thankful for the new resource that was recently planted on the bridge.
We are about to see for the first time the brand new call boxes put on the bridge by the National Park Service.
These call boxes offer a direct line to 911 and the Tennessee crisis number.
The crisis line is more for someone who is in that place and needs that counseling. I think 911, well, that's for them too, but that's also for, I think, bystanders who see someone in trouble and want to get authorities here.
With barely any cell service in the area, Trish and Sarah say the call boxes are essential, and they hope they'll make a big difference for people in need.
If that call box saves one life, then it is worth it.
Letting somebody know they're loved and cared for is a critical message everyone needs to hear. On the Natchez Trace Parkway Bridge, you can pick up the phone for support. But what if you were walking along and you came across a mental health first aid kit? Something to physically hold on to.
My name is Ali Borowski. I am the CEO and founder of Find Your Anchor. Find Your Anchor is a grassroots movement aimed at suicide awareness and prevention. It all kind of manifests itself into these little blue boxes that we launch into the world. So you're walking down the street, you see this little blue box, you open the lid, it says if you're feeling lost, hopeless, suicidal, this is for you. If not, leave it for someone else in need.
Find Your Anchor is based out of Orange County, California, but boxes have reached places all across the globe. The boxes can be requested by people in need, ordered by mentors who want to help people in need, or launched in a public place for somebody to find. Ali says she thinks launching them organically into the world is the most powerful way for somebody to encounter a box.
It's like a message from the universe, like, I was meant to find this was put here for me.
The box holds multiple items to give people hope.
It's a deck of cards, 52 plus reasons to live. There's a bracelet, a pin, an infographic on depression, a sticker, and some posters, a list of resources, and there's 2 copies so that you can leave one for someone else when you launch the box.
Ali felt inspired to create Find Your Anchor after her own struggles with mental health. She attempted to take her life multiple times. Now she's helping others who may be in a dark place. Keeping track of each individual box, Ali says she's received notes from many people saying the box has saved their life. And that's why more and more mental health advocates are standing behind Find Your Anchor.
I like the Find Your Anchor box because it's empowering the individual immediately and yet provides resources for them if they need more than just the box. And then this one's important for me, being a mentor.
Amanda Green says she can't stop ordering Find Your Anchor boxes because she understands their powerful impact.
Living with chronic illness and having it for a long time, there's days where you're like, okay, I'm done.
As soon as the people receiving boxes are in a better place, they're encouraged to pass it on, adding an item that was an anchor for them. Whether it's a phone call on the top of a bridge or a box by the beach, what's most important for people to realize is that they're not alone, they're loved, help is available, and there is hope.
My core belief in the height of my darkness was that no one would care. If we can help convince you that strangers care about you, then, it shouldn't be so hard to, feel that your family and friends do as well.
If you are suicidal, there is help, and I encourage you to reach out.
Talk about it. Find somebody who you trust, whether it's a friend or a family member or a guidance counselor.
Please know that you will not always feel this way. You will not always feel this way. Circumstances change. Your brain changes. Everything changes. You will not feel this way forever. You must give yourself another minute, another day. Because I promise, someday, the birds will sing, and you'll be in a much better place, and you owe it to yourself and your family. More time. As hard as it is, give yourself more time.
I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
Here are like some class notes I took.
Bailey Sheldon is a high school teenager.
I'm a rising senior. I guess you could say I'm a certified pet lover. I also love photography. My family calls me a shutterbug. I have like digital cameras, film cameras, so I am a very big camera nerd, and I also love history.
She says her mental health journey started when she was about 8 years old.
I've never really fit in, so I've always kind of been a target for bullying.
Bullying is what pushed her to the edge.
In about middle school, I had this one bully that was particularly mean, and I think the worst part was that she was mean to me, but in front of teachers, and nobody really cared. So that led me to one of my first suicide attempt, just because I felt so alone and I felt like nobody cared about me.
She has since been diagnosed with a panic disorder and anxiety. Through therapy, medication, and a great support system, she's been learning how to cope. But like many others, the pandemic caused a serious setback.
We're really in a state of emergency when it comes to our children's mental health, and this is largely in part due to the pandemic.
Dr. Jenna Glover is a child clinical psychologist at Children's Hospital Colorado.
Prior to the pandemic, kids were already struggling and having significant mental health problems, but we've seen rates of depression and anxiety double to triple in different places across the country over the course of the pandemic.
Dr. Glover is referencing the results of this Harris poll conducted online in May of 2020. Mental Health America has also been collecting data on how many people use its online mental health screening program. This graph shows a 200% increase in the number of people who completed a screening in 2020 compared to the year before. For students like Bailey, virtual schooling was a big driver of anxiety.
Once they got settled in one type of learning, they were asked to do another type of learning. So this constant changing of routines, of schedules, when that happens over a long period of time, they become very susceptible to having mental health problems.
Bailey says her teachers were flexible with deadlines and understanding of her mental health needs. Coping mechanisms she's learned throughout the years also helped.
Firstly, it has to do with disrupting the headspace. Getting out of that anxiety brain that's telling you certain things, because they may not be true. I mean, it's very selective evidence that my brain uses to make these like disastrous claims.
To learn those coping mechanisms, children and teens need access to mental health care. Heidi Baskfield, the Vice President of Population Health and Advocacy at Children's Hospital Colorado, says she hopes Congress and the Biden administration prioritize critical mental health investments when finalizing the U.S. infrastructure plan.
In the same way that we invest in things like roads and bridges and water infrastructure, we need to be thinking about the same thing when it comes to investing in child and youth mental health systems of care.
Baskfield says our youth need to be supported if we want to foster healthy and successful adults. That starts by treating mental health the way we treat diseases like cancer.
The minute you start feeling sick, you know where to go and you know what you can count on with respect to who can treat you and what kind of care you're going to provide, and that you can receive that care within your own state.
In the meantime, Bailey is using her voice as a mental health advocate to end the stigma surrounding mental health. She says she's looking forward to her senior year, and she hopes to take part in all the traditions that come with her final year of high school. I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
I love it.
A lot of emerging research involving the mental health benefits of psilocybin has led to a push for legalization in certain areas across the country. Psilocybin is the psychedelic compound found in magic mushrooms.
There it is.
Alan Floyd, who loves playing ambient music on his guitar, was diagnosed with a terminal illness in 2006. Since that day, he and his doctors have been working to manage his pain.
And during that process, I just noticed, I was giving up, and it was really, really tough. And heavy depression had set in, and anxiety and end-of-life anxiety and things of that nature.
Alan says they tried 16 different antidepressants.
None of them worked. 4 of them made me completely suicidal.
But in 2016, a federal bill called Right to Try passed, giving terminally ill patients like Alan the ability to try MDMA, LSD, or psilocybin mushrooms. He started microdosing psilocybin mushrooms in pill form.
I haven't had a night terror since the second week I began microdosing. There's a benefit.
We have agreed to use his pseudonym Alan Floyd because he says he's been repeatedly disrupted by people wanting to buy his psilocybin illegally, but he wants the world to know how much it has improved his mental health.
I'm in complete acceptance of what's going on. I'm okay. If I were to drop over in this chair right now and die, I'm okay with that.
While he says psilocybin is not for everyone,
I think everyone has to tread very carefully with legalization. The last thing I would want to see on earth is for the pharmaceutical companies to have a stranglehold on this medicine.
Cases like his that have contributed to research about psychedelics since 2017 are leading to legalization efforts.
60 to 80% of participants are reporting an immediate and substantial decrease in depression. For end-of-life distress when you're facing a terminal illness.
Colorado State University's social work professor Shannon Hughes has been actively following research surrounding psilocybin and the push for legalization.
I think it's going to have to be city by city, state by state, similar to cannabis laws.
Oregon was the first state to pass legislation that approves psilocybin services to the public.
Brian Pilecki is a clinical psychologist in Oregon. He says about 24 states are contemplating psilocybin legislation, and the FDA is considering an approval process.
So what some states are doing is trying to get ahead of that and make this type of treatment or make these substances available to the public now, because we're really in such a mental health crisis in this country.
Shannon says there are efforts to decriminalize and efforts to legalize. In places where the psychedelic mushroom is legalized,
states or localities would develop licensing procedures for practitioners. They would license healing centers. They would license and regulate the production and distribution of psilocybin, both the naturally occurring fungus and the synthetic psilocybin that you would produce in a lab.
Shannon and Brian agree there is still a lot to be explored.
It's early data, so we have to be careful in generalizing from it.
But so far, they say the data regarding benefits to mental health has been pretty strong.
Every day, again, is like when I was a little kid. It's a wonder, and it's just awesome to be alive.
I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.